In the world of video games, the word inconsistent kind of encompasses all video games to me at this point in time.
I didn't hurry, get over here.
Oh, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. Did it just kick you out?
I don't know what just happened. I feel like we died before we net.
The music's not going away.
Maybe it'll go away when we go to do something.
Or whether it's IGN giving a game like Cyberpunk on its initial release back when everything did not work, 9 out of 10. Like, who comes up with that? Who authorizes that to be a thing? Or, speaking of IGN, how they made a whole article/video explaining why they don't even try to give games real reviews, and just they base their reviews on if they're going to be received well or not, and then they use those analytics to make said videos in relation to that. Basically saying that they make all their videos based off what people think rather than how the game actually feels and plays, which is a scam and an inconsistency for a video game company developed to talk about, video games. I say that to say, when I played Lies of P, it reminded me of Atomic Hearts, Elden Ring, Thymesia, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Sekiro, and most of all, Still Rising. Now, I haven't thoroughly played Still Rising, but I played enough Still Rising to know that this is indeed Still Rising. They both, have that puppet aspect going for them, and the puppet machinations happening all over the city, and you need to find the person during the puppet machination massacre rampage thing. They both have the exact same kind of plot. Only Lies of P just, uses Pinocchio as a medium, and Still Rising does not. The combat, all of that, everything just, says that Still Rising is indeed the progenitor of Lies of P. Conspiracy? Maybe. Was I the only one to notice? Probably not. Hotel? Trivago. When I played Lies of P, the biggest thing, like I said, was how inconsistent the gameplay was. From the starting point of the game, you are matched up against these easily dispatchable enemies. The elite enemy you fight for the first time is kind of hard. I feel like the realest challenge that you will face in the beginning of the game is the first boss, who is kind of unrealistically hard to beat if you just go in there, blind. But maybe that's just me. But I just feel like he was very difficult for the game, which was advertised like a RPG experience that was going to be very story focused driven and not very Dark Souls, where you're going to have to sit around and fight bosses over and over and over and over and over and over again to get to the next chunk of dialogue, which is kind of how the game functions. There's large points of just fighting enemies, and then you fight the boss and you get those cinematic moments or those dialogue moments, which play into the whole Pinocchio aspect, but it kind of feels barren and drawn out, especially if you're stuck on a level or a boss for a while. It kind of creates a disconnect to you and the story if you want the story to flow smoothly. It's not like God of War, where you're gonna walk around and characters are exploring this environment for the first time and giving recounts and talking about the gods and the elves and the dwarves and the Muspelheims and Surtur, and you get the picture. It's not gonna be that in depth, and it's not gonna carry you along in that manner. There are some moments where Jiminy offers, little commentary, but those moments are so far in between that I honestly don't even remember what he said, nor do they truly count.
You look annoyed. What I do? I'm sure it's fine. Let's get a move on, pal.
As far as the game goes with looking, sometimes this game can look amazing, especially in the cinematic aspect. And on the same side of that cinematic aspect, the game can look very bad and bland, or shadows are jumping during emotional cinematic cutscenes that I just cannot help but notice and stare at while people are being dramatic. which as a gamer I should not let that ruin my immersion, because we have been conditioned for bugs and glitches. Sometimes you'll load into a fight and it's the most pixelated thing ever, or you'll load into an area and there's like a bunch of pop-in, or you'll walk down the street and there's more pop-in. There is a lot of pop-in. I feel like the space of Krot wasn't used as it is scaled. Once you see Krot from these dramatic positions or these overhead positions, you wonder what else is out there, considering that you only explore like very small chunks of the city and throughout the whole game. Like I think it's only like 3 to 4 specific levels designed around Krot, and like the Malin district is like the smallest one of them all. It's like just 2 streets. But I digress on that. I will say the enemy placement I liked. The enemy designs I liked, and I like that they kept the enemies fresh. You run into a lot of enemies and you do not know how they're going to react. Considering that most time when you play Dark Souls games, you assume that all enemies are going to be these fast, big things. Some of the enemies are big and slow and have limited range, which is really different for a Dark Souls game. So you're trying to run to get out of a way of an attack and it's not even going to reach you. It never was. But you so conditioned to believe that. I loved how they played with spaces. Some of the spaces were unfair. Some of them were extremely fair. Some of the butterflies definitely get you killed. And yeah, I think like majority of them get you killed. Like, be careful with the butterflies. Speaking of the butterflies and getting you killed, this ties right into combat. The combat in the game probably was the biggest inconsistent thing to me in the game. It can be fun, definitely. It can also be extremely inconsistent. Sometimes parry times change on the fly. You'll have somebody just down pack and then all of a sudden you can't even parry them no more, because it's like, what happened? What happened, game? Also with parrying isn't that beneficial to you, especially when you do it to very easily dispatchable enemies, because you can just kill them. And during boss fights, it just doesn't feel like it paying off in the way that you would expect it to. A game like For Honor, where it incentivizes you to parry heavy attacks to get the light attack, or light attack to get the heavy attack, or parrying a dodge attack to get a heavy attack, it incentivizes you by showing you that if you pull off this maneuver that could hurt you, you will automatically receive the benefit of being able to hurt your enemy and do large amounts of damage and turn the tide of the battle in your favor. It's a shift in momentum. Lies of P does not work that way. I tried parrying with the regular weapon and the Aegis shield, and it just was not for me. It just did not seem to pay off in the manner of which I would have liked it to, which was immediately. I risked my neck trying to get this parry. I needed to pay off immediately. I believe you have to parry back-to-back times for it to significantly matter. I didn't play with it enough to experience that, but I did use the Twin Dragon Sword, which has a built-in parry feature when you hold heavy attack. I did like that parry feature because it was immediate. Every time you parry, you get a heavy attack, and it does significant stun damage. So if you pull off 2 heavy attacks on a regular enemy, it stuns them. If you pull off about 3 on an elite enemy, it stuns them, and about 4 to 6 on a boss enemy, it stuns them. This was immediate and I liked it, and it was super helpful in a couple of boss fights, like the Door Guardian, who's annoying and immediately applies shock to you, or the Nameless Puppet, who is fast as Sonic for some reason, or Melania, or whoever else you want to compare him to. And speaking of bosses, I feel like the bosses were cool in design and scale and all of those things and aspects, but some of the bosses were super annoying to fight because they could just one-shot you, or get you with one grab and throw you and one-shot you, or apply status ailments that you had to try to deal with while fighting the boss at the same time, which could possibly one-shot you. Especially like stuff like decay and shock. Those were my least 2. Disruption, which insta kills you. I never got hit with break enough to see what it does, but I think it like affects your health bar. Decay and disruption, I got hit with a lot. I could not stand that. Outside of those things, I think the game is pretty cool. Like, it's a pretty cool adventure. If you love Dark Souls, you'll probably mildly love this game, or mediumly love this game. If you're a casual gamer who doesn't like Souls games, or who is just hoping for an RPG adventure, this is not your game. You're not gonna enjoy it. You're not gonna have a good time, unfortunately. I did play and beat this game 3 times in a row. I've seen all the endings. Out of all the endings that I found to be most satisfying, I liked it the bad ending, and I guess the secret ending. The bad ending just gave Black Nike's energy. It was super interesting and funny to look at. Plus, I liked how the world changes after you get the bad ending. It's the only one, in my opinion, that shows a direct change in the world, like an extreme direct change. Outside of that, though, the game was pretty solid. If I had to give it a numerical value, I'd give the game a 6 out of 10. And if you check it out, I would recommend like waiting for it to go on sale. I wouldn't rush to go buy Lies of P. It wasn't a rush to buy a game. You got an Xbox and you got Game Pass, go ahead and download it, try it out, and tell me what you think in the comments below. This has been a MonoTone review.